Vang, and I'm among organizing leader with Take Action Minnesota. On September 26th, we launched the Renew Minnesota campaign with 850 people in attendance from the community. I was a part of that kickoff and a part of creating the vision. This is the first time that I have been a part of something that would be a part of electing a new governor. And I'm excited by that vision, and that's why I'm here tonight. Since that time, what have you done to enact the vision, and how have you incorporated the vision into your campaign?
Should I stand up? Why don't I stand up? All right. Well, first of all, thank you all for being here tonight, too, because it really makes a difference. You know, that was one of the great events of this election season so far. The energy and excitement in the room was really overwhelming and tremendous, and I think most of all because as the vision was being laid out, it was really resonating with me and echoing a lot of the stuff that we'd already been talking about on the campaign trail, and really capturing in ways that were often more articulate than I put them, the motivation for me running for office. And so I think that in answer to your question, the way that we've used that is a couple of things. First of all, we've really built on that energy and enthusiasm and excitement that was in that room that day. And that's really how this campaign is being built. We focused on getting out all across Minnesota and talking to people in their communities. We've been to 83 counties of the 87 counties and sitting down in coffee shops and people's living rooms, really trying to understand what's going on in their lives. And that's at the heart of what my campaign really is all about. And in addition to that, I mean, the great, you know, I have it here. I actually have this, I carry it around with me in my car because what it spoke to, and I often write my little speeches as I'm driving from place to place, and I often use the language from in here as I talk about that because it really did speak to me in fundamental ways. And I guess the things that I think is so great about this is the first thing is that it builds common trust. Too often in these races and as politicians we talk about what goes on inside the Capitol. And what this vision really allows us to do is expand the conversation to real people's lives, how what we do there plays out in real people's lives, and it gives us a way of talking about that, I think in a way that gets outside the polarization and the Republican-Democrat divide and all the divides that go on in our politics and kind of comes down to fundamental values. So we've been doing that and using that. We've been thinking about this campaign in a different way, which is about engaging people in a much more direct way and talking to them and taking their stories and telling them to other folks so that we can build a movement. And it's really, at the end of the day, about building hope. I mean, that's what this document is all about for me. It's about creating a vision of hope for the future. And we really, especially after yesterday and what we learned yesterday, we really need that right now. And so as I go and talk to people and I see what they're doing in their own communities that really play out this vision, I met a woman in Hoffman, Minnesota, who was recreating her own Main Street by just taking it upon herself. I have to stop right now. But it's really how this vision plays out in individual lives that's really important and has really motivated me to keep going and keep doing the stuff we're doing.
One of the things that I forgot to mention that I want to mention is that we do have a timekeeper.
And I knew that, yes.
So she's there to just keep us on track.
Sure.
Okay. Absolutely.
Okay, one follow-up question. You know, in our vision too, we also had things that we reject. Mm-hmm. That's happening in Minnesota right now, and there's a lot of that. And wondered if you had anything to say about that, and how important is our vision when you're planning where we need to be in Minnesota?
Yeah.
Well, I think governance.
Yeah, and one of the things that really did resonate with me was the things that you reject. Because what we've been saying from the beginning of this campaign is that what's gone wrong in Minnesota is that the Republicans have, and this is not partisan necessarily, but the Republicans have had this ideology that we're all going to be better off if just left to our own devices. And what I've been saying and the work that I've been doing with a lot of you in passing legislation over at the Capitol and in this campaign is really talking about the fact that we do share a common good and that we all do better when we acknowledge that we owe obligations to one another, and what personal responsibility really is about is actually honoring those obligations we have to one another. And that's what I fundamentally believe. That's what our campaign and what my legislative work has been about. And so that piece of your program here really kind of hit at the core of what this campaign is about and what we need to change in Minnesota and why we need to build a movement to do that.
Thank you. Okay, well now we have our second question. That's Mai Thorpe.
My name is Mai Thor, and I'm a board member of Take Action. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. There is no doubt that Minnesota's budget is facing some tough challenges right now that will carry well into your term if you're elected governor. In the name of no new taxes, we have felt the effects of disinvestment in Minnesota for too long. Just this year, instead of raising taxes to maintain and fund the programs that are so important to us, there was a massive budget cut that directly affects the people of Minnesota that needs them the most. I personally know people with disabilities who use personal care attendants and who have had their quality of life decreased and their independence reduced because funding was cut. Part of the problem is that most candidates have been afraid to challenge the idea that taxes are bad. If you're elected governor, how will you approach these challenges, and specifically, how will you use your campaign to build political support for raising new revenues during your administration?
Well, I think that is the issue of this campaign in one fundamental sense. I have never shied away from saying in my legislative races or in this campaign about saying that we need to raise taxes and we need to do it in a progressive and fair way. As I go around the state, the number one thing I hear health care a lot, and then I hear frustration with property taxes. And I think we have a powerful, potent political issue there, because the $2.5 billion in property taxes that people are paying in this state right now are the direct result of the No New Taxes pledge at the state level. And we need to connect those dots over and over again. And if we do that, I think that that's the winning issue, or one of the winning issues in this race. And so I'm very committed to doing that. And I use the tax word, and I'm very upfront about saying that that's what we need to do. Because if we want to do the things we want to do as progressives, we can't do it without those new revenues, without those new taxes. But I think the way that we get at that, and why this vision, again, is so important, is that we need to change the conversation about taxes and about not taxes. I mean, the fact is we live in a state that really is full of abundant resources, human resources and natural resources and financial resources. And we need to start talking about our abundance and all that's good about Minnesota once again. And by doing that, then we can kind of create the understanding that we have the things, we have the resources we need to do all the good things we need to accomplish, to not have the cuts to personal care attendants, as an example, and to make sure that people can live out their lives in dignity. And the way that we're going to do that, and this is just my own personal experience, when we started the session last year, a number of you in this room were part of this group, but and one of the things I'm very passionate about is children's health care. And even though everybody was thinking about sharpening their pencils and pulling on their green eye shades, the session was just going to be about balancing the books. We went in January, and it was because of a movement of 100,000 people that all of you put together to say, even in that environment, we have a moral obligation to provide health care coverage to every child in this state, and we're going to go ahead with that program this year. And you know what happened? We passed it out of committee, we passed it off the House floor, we passed it through conference committee, and we actually, in that terrible budget year, covered 20,000 more Minnesota kids. And that's because we were willing to put out, not just talk about taxes and balancing the budget, but put out a moral vision for Minnesota about what we need to accomplish in this state. And by doing that, that's how we're going to overcome the no new taxes ideology. And it's not just about the people at the Capitol, but it's about the movement of people outside the Capitol well to accomplish that. And that's the only way we were able to get that done.
Thank you, Paul. No.